My name is Marni Richelle McConnach, and I've lived in Cochrane for almost 24 years. And I have this memory of my dad, and he's skiing. He's got his ski poles up in the air, and he's screaming down the hill, and he's like yelling, like a big smile on his face, "Hallelujah!" And in my teenagehood, just rolling my eyes, but deep down I'm like, man, that's like an image of someone who is like truly alive in the moment. And it sticks in my memory. It's just like this beautiful memory I have of my father. And I think maybe like one of the first times I ever felt that feeling is when I had like my first crush. And that first crush for me his name was Daniel. And I'll never forget in grade 6, just getting kind of like poked on the back of my shoulder and looking around and seeing this just beautiful boy. So sweet, just this incredible energy to him. And it was kind of like that love at first sight in middle school. And Daniel was this, just fully alive person. He made me feel fully alive. And that feeling when you have that first crush, just like the butterflies, and just like, oh my gosh, I felt, just so happy in his presence. And Daniel was special in my life because we would swap notes back and forth. And these notes got a little bit carried away. We went from, like a little small notes to each other to like 30-page letters, and then we'd kind of compete. So it'd be 30 and then 31 and then 32. And in those letters, it was a lot of just like expressing what's going on in our life and our feelings and liking each other. And so there was a lot of that, expressing ourselves. And that was kind of that, I think that my first time that I felt safe just like expressing myself to someone, which was really special. In grade 8, on the phone with Daniel, it was Valentine's Day, or the eve before Valentine's Day, and we were chatting about, being each other's Valentine and all the cute things that you do when you're in middle school. And we were, I was looking forward to seeing him the next day at school, and he never showed up, and didn't really know where he was. And later that night, I found out that he had been, and I knew he had been going through some things, and he felt quite ashamed of some things. Maybe there was some bullying, but there was some stuff that he wasn't dealing with well, and he drove to see his brother. He was 13, so driving to see his brother out in Golden, very difficult roads in February. And on his way back, he got in a car accident and he died. And so I was obviously heartbroken, and just little 12, 13-year-old heart was just smashed in a million pieces. And this was my person. This was that guy that I felt like, truly alive, more of like a friend than anything. And I didn't take it well. I have an amazing family. I could have dealt with it quite well, but instead I numbed it out. I didn't feel like talking to anyone. I just bottled it in, and what I turned to was alcohol. And so at like 13, 14, just like totally abusing alcohol, would drink to black out. And it was just my way of numbing out the pain, didn't have to deal with it kind of thing, because it was just always there, this sadness, this grief. And so, that was like some dark times. And at the same time, you're hormonal, and you're just this teenager it's already a difficult time. And then you add in a death of someone who meant so much to you, who you could express all these things to, and then you no longer have that person, not in the same way. And so alcohol became my friend, and it was not a good friend. It wound me up in like getting my stomach pumped in the emergency room at 14 years old, black eyes, falling down the stairs, like just, I was, not going down a good path. And I remember the partying kind of would always end up with me calling my sister and be like, "Cor, can you come pick me up?" And she'd pick me up, and I'd be blackout, but I'd be talking about Daniel. And that was the only time that I ever really talked about it, when I was, just drunk and felt like I could express myself, which was unhealthy. And my sister was always encouraging me to get help. Didn't want to get help. My family was always encouraging me, like, how can we help you? They were lovely and found different ways, like asking me to find different songs that I liked that expressed how I was feeling, because I couldn't express. And I appreciated that approach, because just to be like, talk about your feelings at 13, 14, 15, like it's very challenging. So I really went down that path for quite a while. I really became close with my now husband, Kevin, and he knew Daniel. He knew me kind of growing up. There was this continuity, so there was this new support in my life. And he knew my family really well, which was really lovely as well. He kind of became a part of my family. I knew that once I graduated high school, I needed to get away. I needed like a stop of what I was doing, of the partying and all that, and like a new path. And high school just felt like a nice clean break. I'm on my own, I could decide what I wanted to do. So traveling was what I chose to do. I went traveling to Nepal, China, India, Tibet, and I found yoga. And yoga became just this incredible tool where I could move my body, I could breathe life back into my body, I could process things. I learned how to meditate. I did weird yogic practices that just like sparked that aliveness back into me that I felt, as a child. And so that became my medicine. And I really truly believe that movement is medicine, and there's power there. I went on that journey of travel. I came back, I went to university, and I had a very strong relationship with my family. That image that I have of my dad is because, that was like our thing. We'd go skiing, we'd go snowboarding out to the mountains, and we'd take off early and we'd come back late, and we'd sing, Beatles on the way there and back. And I had this beautiful recognition that sitting in a car speaking, to my dad, that was a beautiful way of expressing how I was feeling and things that were coming up in, my mom and my dad. So fast forward to Boxing Day of 2021, we bring my now husband, Kevin, his brother, my dad, me, my sister, we all jump into a car and we go skiing to Nikiska, and it was a beautiful day. And I have, this another image of like me listening to like this really like, crazy music that I listen to when I'm a young kid, I don't know. And I put it in in his ear to listen to it. And I just had this like, he was just like, yeah, so good. And just that aliveness, like back into both of us on the ski hill, that was where we felt alive. And then the next chair up, we're coming down, and my dad hits some ice, and he goes crashing into a tree. And I go and I see him. I can it was pretty, traumatic. I was watching my father die, and he tore his heart, and he hit his head. And so I was there with him, watching him. And he died that day. And I had people with me there, and we all, it was obviously very traumatic. And so that incident took me on a path of PTSD, which I only really kind of tapped into later on in life. I'm now 32, and I've had it since 21 to 32, just like living with some PTSD from that moment. And what that has felt like is that reoccurring image, and that bringing me back to all those, like the senses of that moment. And sometimes it won't even be like I'm not even on the ski hill, or there's nothing that's triggering it. I could just be driving, and then all of a sudden it comes up and it's a flash, and it's like, and it just like hits so hard, and it totally takes you just off guard. And I knew it was PTSD. I had a word for it, which was helpful because then I could kind of look into it. But I didn't really deal with the PTSD head on. I went back to yoga. I went back to my meditation, and those tools that I developed from the past trauma helped me then deal with this so that I didn't turn to alcohol. What really helped me get through my father's death and not kind of have me fall back into my old patterns after Daniel's death with the drinking and stuff and numbing was turning to yoga, which was my medicine, which turned out to be that medicine. And with yoga, I could get on my mat, I could just close my eyes, put on some music, and just feel my body, like notice what's happening in my mind, and just let it flow. And it was just like my safe space where, just to be able to feel. As I was able to heal on my mat, I was then able to reach out for more healing elsewhere. I wasn't as raw. And I became very curious about how mental health plays into all of this and the mind, body, spirit connection. And so I sought out many different resources and many different practices, and I just kind of tried a whole bunch of different things to see what works, what doesn't work, what feels good, what doesn't feel good. And I think that curiosity is really important in the healing journey. And one of the things that's been very profound is sharing the story, my story, with others, and also have other people share their stories, because in that community sharing, we're able to see ourselves in each other and also to learn off of each other what worked and what didn't work. And just the compassion piece that, man, we are all human and we are all going through something, and there's not a single person in this world that doesn't have a story. And so that is something that I think about all the time when I'm walking through the grocery store, or I'm, whatever interaction I'm having, I can see people differently now, that you have a story just like I have a story, and that story is going to impact you differently. And you might be rude to the cashier on that day because there's something that's coming up for you that day. And I just have far more empathy and understanding in people because of my own experience. But I also have a deep desire to not just sit in the muck. And so whenever those feelings come up, I honor them, I acknowledge them when something comes up, but I don't allow myself to just sit in it too long. There are so many tools out there, even just to be in meditation, to move the body has been so healing. Other places where I found my dad feeling truly alive is now where I truly feel alive, is on our land where we live. It's called the Field of Dreams. And my dad planted, it was this bare land, and my dad planted every single tree and shrub on that land, and there are so many now. And there's a quote that I'm going to butcher, but it's something along the lines of, faith is planting a tree that you'll never be able to sit under. And so my father never got to see these trees grow. He doesn't get to see the Field of Dreams become what it is today, but he's a part of it. He's in every bit of soil, and every single tree he's there. And so I feel very deeply connected to him. And that hallelujah image of him on the ski hill, he had the same moments when he was on the land and he was just planting trees. I would hear him all by himself, and he'd be yelling hallelujah. And he was just so full of life. And now I hear every now and then my mom doing the same thing on the land. And so there is a deep connection. My husband and I have built a yurt on our property, and that yurt is where we want to facilitate anything to do with wellness. So it's a space for people to heal. And wellness can be so broad. We believe wellness is music, and in yoga, and in breath, and in just sitting with community. And so really it's a space for all of the things. So with this understanding that wellness is so multidimensional and so broad, I not only want to bring in all of the people to do all of the healing in the year, but also I seek out for my own wellness in our community, because we have such an incredible wellness community right here. And so I found ART, which is Accelerated Resolution Therapy, with an incredible practitioner here in town, Suzanne. And truly, through that process, the PTSD is not the way that it used to be. It's not as triggering. I have not had a moment where I've had a flashback and it's taken the breath right out of me. But yeah, I check in with her and I still just, I share that it hasn't come back. I've used it for other things that have been quite traumatic in recent times. And it's just phenomenal. I can't believe how helpful it's been in my life. And so I think by sharing these tools, like what's worked for me, is really helpful for other people. What this might work for you. And so that's part of the healing journey is sharing our stories, learning from each other. And honestly, like my advice for anyone who has dealt with PTSD or grief or anything, to be curious, to understand that this is a journey, that you're not going to just find a quick fix, that you need to experiment. And that can be quite overwhelming, but just to take little baby steps. Go to your first yoga class, see what happens. If that wasn't for you, go to a different yoga class, see if that's for you. Yoga's not for you. What is for you? Search it out. What is going to feel good in your life, and what can actually be this continuous tool that you can use so that when something comes up or there's some struggle, that you have something to fall back on and you trust it. You know that it's a safe place for you to fall back on. Also, to just share with people that you feel they can trust with your story. But sharing your story is powerful. And sometimes what it can do is take the power out of the grief's hand and more into your own, because you're claiming it as your story. But one thing I always caution is, don't make your story, like this story that I just shared, don't make it yours and hold on to it tightly. And this grief is mine to hold on to. You need to be able to let it go. So hold your story lightly, because your story is always changing and always evolving, and there's always room to learn more and to grow.